This is Lou. He is a member of the Springfield Police Force, alongside Eddie, working under Chief Clancy Wiggum. Easily the most competent officer, Lou specializes in arresting pretty much every character on the show. However, he is prone to abusing his authority, whether it be police brutality, shirking responsibility, or outright corruption. Lou currently lives as a bachelor after his marriage failed. His only steady relationship seems to be with Chief Wiggum, much to his chagrin. Lou not only works on official cases, he is also the joke police. This is the history of Lou. This Simpsons Histories was long overdue. The Springfield Police Department is a group I haven't covered much on this channel. We see them often, but only for one specific function. Of all the job characters, these three might be the most rigidly defined. But unlike Wiggum, whose personal life is well established, Lou is a mystery. Clearly he is favored over Eddie, but have the writers given Lou any actual depth? Is Lou simply a foil for Chief Wiggum and that's it? Who is this guy? As always, let's go back to the beginning to figure it out. Lou's first appearance was in Season 1's There's No Disgrace Like Home. He and Eddie enter Moe's bar with a canine, looking for some peeping toms and brewskis. As you can see, in Season 1, Lou had yellow skin like Eddie. You might think this is a reverse Black Smithers situation, where they messed up this one time, but he appears the same way in Krusty Gets Busted. Lou is one of those characters that went through a couple evolutions early on. In Bart vs. Thanksgiving, they decided that Lou is black, but is being voiced by Harry Shearer instead. In One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish, and going forward, Hank Azaria takes over the role, with Lou's voice based on Sylvester Stallone. Around this time, we started getting glimpses of the shady side of the Springfield Police. How they hassle Homer and arrest him for no real reason, are bribed by Bart during a shakedown, and then look the other way on Homer's illegal cable operation. The last one isn't really that bad, but the point is that they're playing with our expectations with these guys. I think Season 3 is where Lou truly arrived on the scene. We get stuff like Radio Bart, where he is reading to Timmy O'Toole, calling him a brave little guy, and then abandoning Bart when learning the truth. In Homer at the Bat, they bust Steve Sachs, pinning basically every unsolved murder on him. Definitely one of Lou's more stupid and corrupt moments, and it is so damn funny. In Separate Vocations, Lou talks about how much he loves being a cop, running red lights and hooking up with women. He pursues Snake in an exciting chase scene full of damn boxes, and doesn't give Bart a gun, unlike his idiot partner. This also features the first instance of Lou correcting Wiggum, something we will see going forward. The rest of the Gene and Reese era, through Season 4, is the usual mix of procedural cop stuff. Arresting Sideshow Bob, asking for Otto's license, reporting a fight at the aquarium, and giving a sobriety test. I love that Eddie and Lou went to Wiggum's play to cheer for him. Also, we find out that Lou can fit his whole fist in Wiggum's unhinged jaw. Bad cops, bad cops. Oddly enough, Lou mostly sat out the David Merkin era, Seasons 5 and 6. Which is weird, considering how many Law and Order plots there were. He enjoys the B. Sharp's performance before being told to get the tear gas. He confirms what Marge is saying about the law in Cape Fear. He reports that someone took the beer and cold cuts in one episode, and in another, that the map is making an arrow. We're seeing a shift away from the Eddie and Lou duo, and more toward a Wiggum, Eddie, and Lou as a comedy trio. Wiggum serves up a ridiculous premise, and they carry it out. Unfortunately, most of the crime stories of this era have the Simpson family getting involved, and Mr. Burns hasn't been shot yet, so Lou wasn't needed much. However, he made a big comeback in the Oakley and Weinstein era, Seasons 7 and 8. Starting with Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, he plays a key role in the investigation, questioning Maggie and finding a gun in the car. We even get Off-Model Lou, a drawing that will always irrationally bug me. The biggest change in this era was the rise of frivolous cop banter. Often they will engage in some kind of discussion or petty argument with the chief. He tells Wiggum he actually shot the captain of the basketball team. When Wiggum plans to leave the ransom below a big net, he suggests down comes the net. When Wiggum insists on arresting Sideshow Bob, Lou argues with him, saying that Sideshow Cecil confessed and Bob wasn't resisting arrest. This is also where Lou either got promoted or busted down to sergeant. There's an extra meta layer now to these absurd Springfield cops. Wiggum even points out that the chief doesn't typically go on these calls, which Eddie and Lou sure do appreciate. This is definitely their most laid-back era. Like here in 22 short films about Springfield, he recounts his trip to the Shelbyville McDonald's and their mysterious quarter pounders and shakes. He'll point out to Rex Banner that he has barely touched his banana kaboom. After busting a blind man for marijuana possession, they toke up and sing Jammin' over the credits. This is personally my favorite Wiggum and Lou moment in series history, just cause it's so loose and conversational. Even when they're as high as kites, they can't stop bickering with each other. At this point, the series had figured out the joke formula for these three. Throughout the Mike Scully years, very little changed with Lou's role. Sometimes he'll show up to chase or arrest a character, sometimes to set up a general observation or exposition, sometimes he'll accidentally do peyote and spin around in his chair. Plot relevance. But mostly he banters with Wiggum. Things seem to be taking an awkward and combative turn these days. Lou undermines Wiggum's assurances that they'll catch the Simpsons' holiday burglar. He doesn't bother to stop Wiggum from drinking any more of that squishy after Apu's death. He corrects Wiggum labeling of Fat Tony to Italian Americans. He whines about Eddie splashing him in the water. After arresting a chef, Lou announces that he could go for some frittatas, to which Wiggum and Eddie laugh uproariously at him. Chief Wiggum steals his miniature pinball toy he got in his Laffy meal. Wiggum even declares he and Eddie aren't the cutest police officers anymore. How dare he? Despite it being the turn of the millennium, things weren't entirely about bullying and mockery, just mostly. Like here's Lou and Wiggum inviting themselves over to play tennis. They're instead bullying and mocking the Simpsons' tennis skills behind their backs. These two have certainly become closer, with Lou even helping Wiggum finish writing his name in the snow. Don't worry, he was just using coffee. Lou has never touched Wiggum's junk. Well, at least not until season 27? Anyway, in Trilogy of Error, he asks if he can hold his gun sideways because it looks so cool, and Wiggum grants the birthday boy his request. Season 12 has this weird runner with Lou, where he compares stuff to a Chinese Walmart or a Japanese tea bag, or calls these fireworks Chinese sky candy. Wiggum straight up tells him to lay off the Asians. Now that we're heading into the Al Jean era, starting in season 13, you're probably asking, Jims, do we ever learn anything about Lou as a person? I mean, all we've gotten so far is his work. Well, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is that Al Jean did provide some of that sweet, sweet Officer Lou lore in the back half. The bad news is, well, everything else is more of the same. First, let's hit up the highlights and get to know the man behind the badge. In season 13, he tries breaking up with Chief Wiggum and the police force, saying there is more money in private security. The breakup does not go well. And Lou knows about breakups because the very next year, we discover he has an ex-wife named Amy, who shares her name with this monkey. The situation is still pretty raw, as later that year, he resents Eddie for sleeping with her. When is a divorce ever final? In another episode, he criticizes Wiggum for not working that hard to save his marriage, to which Wiggum tells him to wake up, she was out of his league. In a much later episode, we find out that Lou has a son in Baltimore that he doesn't get to see that often. In season 16, Wiggum gets promoted to police commissioner, and Lou gets promoted to chief of police, and Eddie gets promoted to Lou. We don't need an Eddie. Lou does a pretty good job too, fielding questions from Lisa about a tapestry of deceit. You really get the sense that Lou could have done so much better in life. He tells Eddie how he got into law school but couldn't afford it, and feels his life slipping away. In season 18, we actually get a Lou spotlight, or at least as close to a spotlight that Lou's gonna get. In Stop or My Dog Will Shoot, Lou returns to his canine unit roots and becomes Santa's Little Helper's partner. He acts as the solid rock for the inexperienced and hot-headed rookie. He comforts him when injured, warns him about getting too loaded on the job, and advises him to learn how to let things go. Santa's little helper even goes to live with Lou for a short while. Lou seems to be hooking up regularly with this neighbor who comes over, but this clearly isn't a serious relationship. He tells Santa's little helper they don't love us, they just love the uniform. In the end, Lou realizes that SLH misses Bart, wells up in tears, and releases him. Wow, I would have never guessed that I could be so invested in this random character duo. Season 18, you've done it again. In Season 22, he goes undercover with the mob, although that quickly gets ruined by Chief Wiggum's deep-seated insecurities. But Lou has an even bigger problem. He fell in love with the Don's daughter and doesn't know if she'll love the real Lou. In Season 30's Woohoo Done It, Wiggum and Lou guide most of the investigation along with the documentary crew. They present theories about the crime, gather evidence, and interview suspects. Fairly prominent role for Lou, all things considered, as he talks directly to the camera. Via flashback episodes, we get glimpses of Lou's backstory. In To Cur with Love, we discover that Lou and Wiggum go way back to his childhood, as they were paired up in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Honestly, this is a pretty tragic backstory for Lou, partially because Wiggum didn't even want to be paired up with him, but partially because Wiggum steals his life goal to become chief of police someday. And when Lou changes to being a spokesperson for his people, like Ralph Abernathy, Wiggum latches onto that too, really liking the name Ralph. That's right, Lou inspired Ralph Wiggum's name, who might not really be Chief Wiggum's biological son. But we don't talk about that theory here. Anyway, Lou was also in Homer's R&B group in the 1990s and later played drums in Sadgasm. He doesn't really do anything in this episode. I get the impression he was picked because Homer didn't know any other black people aside from Carl. I mean, that time when they were auditioning Carl's replacement, look who their first pick is. Lou finds this very offensive. To be honest, Lou's race plays a very small part of his characterization, just a couple references here or there. This is a total guess on my part, but maybe the writers were going for a sort of Lethal Weapon, white cop, black cop sort of dynamic originally with Eddie and Lou. Not that Eddie matters in the grand scheme of things. Around seasons 17 through 20, the trio of Wiggum, Eddie, and Lou was downsized to just Wiggum and Lou. The writers must have decided that Eddie didn't add much to their dynamic. By season 31, Eddie is literally putting up billboards criticizing Wiggum and demanding more to do on the show. Lou is largely a Wiggum-centric character, so I think it's best we focus on this special relationship. The two had always bickered, but with Eddie mostly out of the way, this angle became almost the entirety of Lou's characterization. The back half of The Simpsons loves pop culture references between these two, really following that Pulp Fiction lead. Wiggum sarcastically calls him Princeton Pete, tells him to pipe down Jules Verne. Lou presents this Johnny Depp chocolate statuette. They argue about Shamrock Shakes. Wiggum loves cheesy puns, and Lou is right there to groan at them. He says they're taking the last train to Clarksville, to which Lou clarifies is the Monkees, not the Beatles. Go wait in the car. He calls Marge Ma Pedal, to which Lou says if you have to explain the reference, it doesn't work. When Wiggum is crushed by a chess piece, Lou corrects his pun, saying he should mean check and mate. Wiggum calls this graffiti artist Prank Lloyd Wright, and Lou is quick to point out that's architecture, not art. They're all artists, Lou. Wiggum is putting an end to this Lightmare on Elm Street, and Lou says no, they're on Maple Street. He refuses to help Wiggum out with finishing his acronym, claiming he got himself into this mess. When Wiggum greets everyone with an Opa, Lou points out that's Greek, not Italian. Lou did eventually like one of his puns, surprising Wiggum by laughing at Sylvester alone. Personally, I'm with Lou on a bunch of these, but I admit he can come off as a wet blanket. Just let Wiggum have his dad jokes, jeez. Lou also tends to fat shame him in these later years. He makes fun of his size 58 pants, criticizes him for lying about weighing 180 pounds, saying his pants don't fit, complains about how much pizza Wiggum eats, correctly warns him not to eat anything in these tight pants, asks, aren't those pants a little tight? Even in that Futurama crossover episode, He's admitting that these are the only clothes that fit him. Boy, the writers sure do love Wiggum's pants. No wonder the cops were so into those counterfeit jeans. These two clearly have underlying grievances that inevitably bubble up into snippy, passive-aggressive exchanges. When Wiggum sounds too surprised when Lou hit the pie man, Lou takes offense. Wiggum says he was just trying to be supportive and calls him a jerk. Wiggum wishes his partner was a big ball of candy. What's that? Nothing. Lou says that he knows how it feels to be unhappy with his partner. What's that? He gets so fed up with Wiggum's incompetence, he straight up tells him that a stuffed monkey would be a better chief. I guess Lou does have a good reason to be sick of his boss. Wiggum puts him through a lot of crap. He jails him because he got him an iced coffee instead of a nice coffee. He jails him a second time, calling him a workplace bully for labeling his lunch, since Wiggum keeps eating it. Wiggum once replaced his gun with a prop, which caused things to not go well. Wiggum even shoots Lou twice in that Elon Musk episode, because he doesn't understand how his safety works. No wonder Lou is so quick to betray him in that Treehouse of Horror, and shoot him in that other one. Even though Lou is kind of a dick sometimes, I do find it satisfying when he gets the upper hand. Wiggum really has it coming to him. I mean, what kind of person gives one corncob holder in the Secret Santa? Unlike the Lenny and Carl dynamic, the writers don't tend to do gay jokes about the cops. There's one joke where Wiggum once made Eddie and Lou kiss, but per union rules, he's not allowed to request it a second time. But that's pretty much it. Wiggum and Lou's dynamic is more like long-term work spouses. Or they're like an old married couple. They've been together for so long that they have a deep closeness, even though they argue all the time. They say horrible things to each other, and then ask, "Why do we hurt each other so?" and tenderly hug. When Chief Wiggum gets hospitalized in season 21, Lou literally sleeps in the adjoining room waiting for him. He misses the wake-up though, so Wiggum doesn't care. When a new police chief takes over, it stings extra hard because he feels betrayed by Lou and that other guy. One of the bigger disappointments with these characters in modern Simpsons is the lack of commentary or satire of the Springfield police force. Once they decided Chief Wiggum was Captain Wacky and Lou his trusty straight man, they mostly stuck to LOL Wiggum dumb setups. Which you could argue is LOL cops dumb, I suppose. But they don't play around with the shady or corrupt side of the Springfield police that often, like in the old days. Sure, they'll slam heads in the doors and tase people on rare occasions, but generally these three lack any satirical edge. The writers play them like workplace sitcom characters instead. Starting in season 32, Alex Desire took over the role of Lou. I think he does a good job performance-wise. Unfortunately, we don't get to hear from Lou as often these days, maybe 3 times per season. I like how he characterizes this party as legendary, and him trying to put a wire on Krusty. But honestly, most of his recent appearances are largely forgettable. Chief Wiggum misses his work husband, and I hope we see him more regularly soon. Going into this project, I was expecting the cops to be similar to Homer, Lenny, and Carl, with a wacky lead and 2 reactors. But as Eddie got phased out, they morphed into more of a Skinner and Chalmers thing. Lots of arguing, awkward moments, and vocational challenges. What I like about Lou is that he's not simply the boring straight man. He's able to dish it right back at Wiggum, really put him in his place. He's not a Kif from Futurama, where you feel bad for how put upon he is. There is this tacit understanding that Lou is better than Wiggum, and serves in more of a babysitter role. He has the comedic flexibility to lampshade a silly situation, or get dragged into it. Either outcome, you're gonna get some comedy gold. I am disappointed that there isn't much more to Lou, that he hasn't been given much spotlight. It's telling that almost all of his quote-unquote lore is in throwaway jokes about his divorce. I wish we got more moments like this one, where Lou gets to talk about his job and what motivates him. Of course, Lou is always going to be primarily a comedic foil for Wiggum. That's his purpose on the show. But given 35 years of content, you'd think we'd get more from this guy. Maybe in this regard, Lou is more like a Lenny, where he's just a guy. He delivers jokes, and that's pretty much it. I do love his Popeye arms though. Please never get rid of his Popeye arms. As always, let me know in the comments what you think of Officer Lou and your favorite moments of his. Is Lou someone you wish we got more of, or are you content with the amount of Lou in your life? Personally, I was surprised at the sheer number of episodes he'd been in over the years, even if most of those appearances are similar. As always, let me know who you would like to see for the next Simpsons Histories. Lunch Lady Doris, blue-haired lawyer, and Ralph Wiggum have been gaining momentum these days. Someone suggested Snowball, which would be fun, although I am kind of terrified of the research. But who knows? I definitely take your nominations in mind when picking these, so let your voice be heard. As always, thanks for watching.